Hey there, I got another video for you guys today with Dave Henderson of Red's Quality Acre in Durham, North Carolina. And I did a longer video with Dave and his partner Caitlin. I released it back in December. If you want to check that out, put a link up there. I'll also put a link at the end if you guys want to see a longer tour of that, or of their farm and what they're up to. Just producing tons of greens. And this video is really going to be about summer growing strategies for greens, especially in tunnels. Dave has a really unique strategy in how he sets up his beds, irrigation, shade cloth, landscape fabric, a lot of cool stuff to think about. And it might seem like a weird time to put out this video, but you'll see in this that there will be some planning involved. So as you might start thinking about your strategies for this summer and growing greens, this might be very helpful for you guys, especially if you're in the south or some places that gets a lot of heat. So hope you enjoy. You have really consistent lettuce production year-round, and I know you change up a little bit your strategy in terms of what you're growing, but can you talk about some of your summer growing strategies?
Yeah. So during the summer, for our salad mix, we change from Salanova to a mustard mix, which we use arugula, red mustards, and Tokyo Bacana. And the way that we plant that is just outside, outside in the garden, outside of the tunnel, direct seeded, and then right the same day we cover it with insect net and use overhead irrigation, and have a timer set up to go off a couple times a day for that.
So that's mainly for the summer, right?
Yeah, so that's that.
So fall through spring you guys are growing Salanova?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then the summer is really like, we start that up like, July, August, and September, basically. And then we're back to Salanova.
So you also grow a lot of head lettuce, so
Yep.
Can you talk about that strategy?
So during the summer, we're growing the same variety, which is Mir. And during the summer, we put down landscape fabric. And it's inside the tunnel. So the tunnel is covered in landscape fabric, aisles are covered, everything's covered. And we plant into the landscape fabric, and it's all done with overhead irrigation, which for the quantity that we need about 2 beds every other week planted. So that's 2 beds that are 100 feet long. But during the summer, we plant kind of like what we've done in here right now, is we plant half the tunnel, all 4 beds, to give us the same amount of row feet. And then we're able to, each of our sprinkler heads has an on and off valve. So we're able to, irrigate this half of the tunnel at a different time than we're irrigating the second half of the tunnel by just using the on-off valves.
Okay, so most people run drip tape under the landscape fabric. You guys are just doing overhead.
Yeah, I just haven't found that to be helpful. I know that people were doing that, and I tried it for a while, and I just didn't notice it being very helpful. I felt like we were getting plenty of water and not too much water by using overhead with the landscape fabric, and the landscape fabric helps hold in some of that moisture. And they were getting plenty of water, and for us that just worked better than using drip tape.
Okay, and so you guys are using like actual landscape fabric, not the like plastic.
Yeah, landscape like woven mesh.
So it gets reused.
Landscape fabric, so it gets reused. Yeah, some of that stuff we've had for 5 years.
Okay, and that's with like the pre-burned holes in it.
We burn them ourselves.
Okay,
but yeah.
And what sort of spacing do you do for summer head lettuce?
We do 3 rows per bed, 9-inch spacing in between plants.
So a little bit more room than probably a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, I've just found that if, a lot of our orders are for bulk, and if we're letting the heads just get a little bit bigger, then we have less like waste left over. It's like then we really are harvesting pretty much all the heads, and we just get less waste, and it's easier to kind of clean up at the end, and the heads are bigger, so we get the same amount of weight out of a bed.
All right, so I think the strategy is really interesting in that you know how many beds you need per week for succession, but you don't split the tunnel by bed because you split it. This is a 100-foot tunnel, and you split it halfway down the middle, right?
Yeah.
And can you talk about that a little bit more?
And so we do that because for our caterpillar tunnels, which is 4 beds, we use one irrigation line, and that irrigation line waters all 4 beds. So we basically have those on and off valves so that we can split the tunnel in half. So instead of planting 200-foot beds, we plant 4 50-foot beds. And then 2 weeks later, we plant the second half of the tunnel, and we can water each end of the tunnel independently from each other.
And so is there different watering strategies depending on how big the plants are, or?
Yeah, like at first we have to water a little bit more, and we've got them set up on timers, so the timer will cut on, and we'll get overhead for like 15 minutes, a few times a day.
Okay.
And that's enough to get the plants what they need and cool the soil temperature down to help with the heat inside the tunnel.
Okay, so is this covered in shade cloth in the summer?
Yes, sorry, I forgot to mention.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, right?
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, then also in the summer we've got shade cloth over the whole tunnel, and basically from planting, we have pretty big transplants. We do them out of 72 cell plug trays.
Okay.
And so they go in pretty big, and then it's about 1 month from seeding until they're ready to be planted, and then about 1 month in the ground until they're ready to be harvested. And for the shade cloth, we have the shade cloth over the tunnel for about 2 weeks, and then we peel the shade cloth back and get direct sunlight for the last 2 weeks. And we found that just helps kind of like finish off the lettuce and give it a little bit more sunlight, prevents it from being leggy, and just adds a little bit more weight to the head.
Okay, so that shade cloth would be on half of the tunnel then?
So then, yeah, so what we'll do is
just slide it down?
We actually have 100-foot pieces already. You can just slide it down, but since we have 100-foot pieces, we just fold it back.
Okay.
In either direction that we need. And so we kind of got into a rhythm where it would be like, plant this, have the shade cloth on, and then peel that back 2 weeks later at the same time that we plant the second half of the tunnel.
Absolutely. So that 50-50 in the middle split works out not just for irrigation but also for shade cloth. So that's another.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I thought about cutting it and just having one piece 50 feet to move around, but I want to be flexible because as we get more accounts, I want to be able to not be
tied to 50 foot.
Tied to 50 feet, so that we can have the 100 foot. If we're going to double it, then we could plant the whole tunnel. 2 weeks later, we can plant another whole tunnel. And so I just wanted to have the 100-foot shade cloth for that purpose.
Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit more about landscape fabric. Now, some people don't want to use it. Some people do like using it. But what's the other benefit? You were mentioning about harvesting. That makes a big difference for you guys.
So during the summer, when it's planted into landscape fabric, which, by the way, I think we're going to just start, even in the winter, we're going to start switching and doing it into landscape fabric for this purpose. But it stays really clean, and we're able to harvest and field pack. So we just bring wax boxes into the field and harvest directly into the produce box, and that way the box stays clean because it's sitting on landscape fabric, and the head lettuce is clean. We don't need to wash it off, so it saves a huge step in unpacking it and repacking it into boxes once it's clean.
Yeah, you can't really get a faster harvest than that, really.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that is really nice that we've noticed with the landscape fabric in the summer is that there is a lot less fungal issues. It keeps fungal pressure down because there's a barrier between the soil and the plant. and so you're not getting splash up. And then also in the summer, the heads are a little bit smaller, so the weight that we get out of a bed of head lettuce is about 1/3 less in the summer than we do in the spring and the late fall and winter. So the less leaves that we can take off to clean it up, or if bugs get to the bottom leaves that are touching the ground, the better we're going to be, because that's just a little bit more weight that's going to be sellable.
I always notice, like, the couple leaves that are closest to the ground, they're often less quality, right? Because they're so those stay a lot cleaner. Those are usually more salvageable then.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, and I mean, you still got to take some off here and there, but it's definitely less trimming the head down in the summer.
Well, Dave, a lot of cool tips for summer growing, and I think some things that have not been talked about, especially with your strategy of splitting beds and shade cloth and irrigation. So thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah.